Welcome to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast, coming to you every week from deep within the Outer Rim, far beyond the watchful ice of the Galactic Empire. Join your hosts, John Mark Tolley, Garrett K. Jones, and Brian Karasik, as they discuss the various facets of the saga's lore, characters, review the films, and discuss every tidbit of news coming out of Lucasfilm. And remember, this isn't just my Star Wars, this isn't just your Star Wars, this is our Star Wars.
It is indeed our Star Wars.
Mostly
Welcome.
ours.
Mostly our, yes. Welcome to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast. Great to have you guys back. It always seems like it's been longer than a week, even though it's only been a week. I don't know.
A lot happens in 7 days.
It can.
They go fast.
I was in a whole completely other state for 3 days and surviving tornadoes and going to concerts.
Well, I was in a completely different state too, but it was more of a state of disarray.
Is that really a different state for you, though, Garrett?
Not usually, no.
Yeah, I was in a state of denial.
Well, I was in my normal state. Although we did go to the zoo yesterday, and my daughter got to do they have a ropes course there, and this is the first time this is the first time she's been big enough to go on it.
Oh, cool!
And I'm gonna say she was fearless, but wise. She's like, let's do it. I want to try everything. But when she got up there, she's like, maybe I don't want to try everything. But
yes.
The last stop, the exit from the course, is a slide, like a plastic slide that just goes down into nothing. And then you just sink down on your, like a retention rope. So you belay down after you go off the slide. And there was a 13-year-old boy in line ahead of us, and we had to wait for him to panic and give up and quit before my 7-year-old daughter would get on it and slide down. And she asked, I hope he didn't hear her, but I kind of hope he did, because he was a little bit of a jerk to us earlier. She's like, why was he so scared, Dad? He was on a harness. Like, yeah, not everybody is,
Not everybody's good with heights. Yeah. How high up was it?
20 feet.
Well, that's not terrible.
Yeah.
No, it would hurt, but it's not like, we're not 70 feet in the air.
Yeah. I did one up in out of Oakhurst near Yosemite. There's a summer camp I used to go to as a kid, and they had a ropes course. It's about 40 to 50 feet up, and I don't know how they did the ascent for you guys, but it was a vertical climb. Straight up a tree. It starts.
No, we had a rope ramp.
Yeah, they had
a net.
They had an accordion ladder that they had fully extended that you start climbing up, and then from there, you have to climb up staples. And so
I did a summer camp too, but it was like 30 feet, and they had.
Yeah, by the time you get up there, it was my arms were just exhausted, because like they say, climb with your feet, push up with your feet. That way you aren't wearing out your arms. But when you're that high up and
I didn't get any of that coaching. I just got good luck. You're going to be great. So at any rate, what are we covering today, fellas?
Okay, we are covering fave books.
Fave books, yes.
Favorite books.
Yeah, indeed. Well, Garrett, why don't we start with you, since you are the resident author?
All right. Well, my favorite book is Don't Stand Too Close to a Naked Man by Tim. Oh, wait, that's not Star Wars.
That's good advice, though.
It is. Very good advice.
Tim Allen is full of good advice.
Dude, I read that book when I was in Japan, and I read it in like a single day. It was that good. Like, I could not put it down. My favorite chapter, hands down, was the secrets that men never tell women. It's literally one sentence long. Are you kidding me? That's why we call them secrets.
I like that.
So, unfortunately, I don't have my copy, but one of my favorite books of all time from the Star Wars extended canon, or the Legends canon, is The Shadows of the Empire. I love that story. I've mentioned it before. I've got the graphic novel edition. I never really played the game much because I didn't have access to a Super Nintendo. But it was this book, the story was part of a huge mega campaign that Star Wars was putting out to kind of revitalize interest in the franchise, before they did the re-release of the original trilogy, remastered and special edition and all that. And it was really a cool story because the story, I mean, you guys know already, but for those people listening and watching, you might not be aware of it, but it takes place between the events of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And it explains a lot of stuff that takes place at the start of Return of the Jedi. Like, we understand why the droids were sent ahead to Jabba's palace. We understand why Luke now has a green lightsaber. It's not just because the blue blade doesn't work really well against the skies of Tunisia.
No meta text.
None whatsoever. But there's a lot of stuff that fills in the gaps, and it introduces us to kind of like the most interesting set of characters, I think, that I would have loved to have seen as part of the canon, both previous canon and current canon. First and foremost, we get introduced to a brand new villain. I mentioned him last week, Prince Shizor. He's a Phaline mob boss, basically. He operates the Black Sun crime syndicate, and this guy is devious beyond devious. He's actually trying to replace Vader as Palpatine's right hand, and he's going about it in some really underhanded ways, of course, because he's a criminal. But
how else would you?
Right, exactly. Like he keeps trying to kill Luke Skywalker, and even though he's been expressly forbidden by the Emperor to do so, he's doing it at first in some very indirect.
This guy's got a bad 5-year plan: piss off Vader and Palpatine simultaneously. Oh, right? While fighting Luke Skywalker, not the longest lived profession either.
Well, he doesn't do it directly. He uses his connections through shell companies and stuff like that to hire assassins and bounty hunters, and every time Luke just keeps avoiding it by the skin of his teeth or because he has help.
Luke is Space Batman by that stage of the Legends, if not Superman.
I was gonna say he is space Robin, maybe Space Nightwing.
Okay, yeah.
So he's not quite there, but he's getting there.
I like your analogy better.
Yeah. And so Shizor is pretty cool. Shizor actually has a right-hand individual named Guri, who is like probably the most sophisticated droid you'll ever see, because she looks human. She's fully capable as a human being. She's not a cyborg. She's not some kind of android. She is, well, I mean, she is an android because she looks human. But she doesn't have the standard chassis that you would see with like a 3PO unit or some other type of droid. She looks human. She passes for human. She's this tall, leggy blonde and like absolutely drop dead gorgeous. Completely, like it emotionally and mentally disarms people because they don't know what she's capable of doing. But yet she's incredibly deadly. And then of course we are introduced to a brand new Corellian rogue smuggler by the name of Dash Rendar, who looks like he could have been Han Solo's Canadian cousin. Like, he's got this mullet thing going on with a ponytail. It's business in the front, party in the back. And he pilots a ship called the Outrider, which is a Corellian freighter, has the typical design, the kind of wheel-shaped design in the middle with the side-mounted cockpit. But it had a really neat feature in that the cross beam axis of the Outrider was actually on a hinge, and so he could actually pivot the part of the body of the ship, including the engines, in a way that almost was reminiscent of like the B-wings. And I thought it was a really neat design for the action figures. It made for a great play set because you could do so much more with it. But yeah, it was a great story. Loved it. And I liked it so much that not only did I get the print edition of the book, I also got the graphic novel version, which adds a little bit more distinction.
I have a really nice statue I need to show you at some point, Garrett. It's like a bust of Palpatine with Jizor and Vader on either side of him.
I think you showed it to me.
I must have. It's the only part of Shadows of the Empire that I have.
Yeah.
Some years ago, I was cast as Palpatine in a fan production of Shadows of the Empire.
Nice.
The director gave me that.
Beyond that, since Empire Strikes Back is my favorite film, years ago, someone gave me this. It is the making of The Empire Strikes Back, which is written by, or at least consolidated by J.W. Rinsler, of the who's a New York Times bestselling author, and it has a foreword by Ridley Scott. And so it's got all the behind the scenes stuff. It's got designs and sketches by Ralph McQuarrie. It's kind of cool to see. Chapter 1 starts off with the summer of Star Wars, May to December 1977. And so I really loved reading through this because I like that behind the scenes stuff. But beyond that, I do have William Shakespeare's The Empire Striketh Back by
Yay! I have all of those.
Sure. I have episode 1. I have the original trilogy. This was a special gift that was given to me almost 11 years ago. And then the last book that I have on my list here is, of course, the Jedi Path, because I thought this was a fun little get when I was looking for something on
Garrett. Point of order: does your copy of Jedi Path say Legends on the cover? That looks like an older one.
It does not.
It is pre-Disney Jedi Path.
It is very pre-Disney.
And did it come in a holocron or a book, whatever it was?
No, that was
Okay.
It did not have that. It just has. It did have like a saran, like a shrink wrap around it when I got it, but I pulled it out of the shrink wrap because I wanted to read it.
That is an amazing series of books, folks. That's the Imperial Handbook, the Bounty Hunter Way, the Jedi Path, and the Book of Sith. All of them about that same size. You can usually get them for between $12 and $15 at a bookstore. Pre-Disney, they were they came in little collectors units. Like the Book of Sith comes in a Sith holocron, which opens up and a drawer expands out and it plays music and everything. It's a beautiful piece. That's a good addition to the library there, Garrett.
Thank you. I do
they have notes in the margin too. Who's written in that one?
Let's see. Notes in the margin. Let's see. Yoda, Ahsoka, Luke, Qui-Gon, Anakin. Actually, it's kind of funny. Anakin's. This is like on page 6 where it's starting to talk about the Jedi Code, and Qui-Gon's marginal note says, "If the living force engenders compassion, eventually even love, I do not feel these are a detriment, despite the precepts of the code." And Anakin says, "Yes, maybe this is why Qui-Gon was never on the council."
Interesting fact about those books: if you have more than one, the handwriting is consistent from one to the next.
This is true. The first page of the History of the Jedi Order has Yoda saying, "Updated, this section should be," with a response from Dooku. So update it, old one.
That's good. That's good.
Nice.
I have two pieces of artwork I did of Palpatine, where I used a quote from him out of the Book of Sith, where he signs it. And so it's the closest we have to a canonical example of Palpatine's handwriting and signature. One of them is sadly ironic. He says, under my rule, the Sith will hold their authority forever," which forever, 20 years, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I would imagine the Sith would instead of like having like an actual signature, that they would have something similar to one of those stamps that the Japanese would use.
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah. One thing I would like,
an S surrounded by some stylized angles.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it for Star Wars yet, but Star Trek had it similar. It was like a passport, like about the size of a passport. And it had information on all the main, like some of the main worlds in the Star Trek universe. So it had like, like on Earth, about like Vulcan and all these things. And it had like a back of the section for like, regions to avoid. Don't go to this area. Something like that I think would be cool for the Star Wars universe, like little passports things.
That would be cool.
And you could even get it stamped. Had like little notes where you could write like your little thing, to get it stamped by the different planets you visited.
So,
All right. Well,
who's next?
Garrett,
I guess I will go.
I want to show you how close you are to the concept of what a Sith signature would be.
Oh, yep.
Those are my two Palpatine
I've
pieces.
seen that in the Book of the Sith.
Yeah.
Yep. The image is mine, but that's actually the top one is an existing image I altered, but the bottom one is a picture of my 6-inch Black Series, posed and photographed and digitally manipulated. But at any rate,
that's cool.
Yes. All right. Well, I guess I will go next. I am doing a trilogy because so many of the especially the early books were written as trilogies, and this is a trilogy that was written by Kevin J. Anderson. It is the Jedi Academy trilogy, and it tells the story of a young Kessel prisoner by the name of Kip Duran, who starts to train as a Jedi, falls to the dark side, and is inevitably returned back to the light side. Introduces some characters that would become really big in Legends. Of course, Admiral Dala, the Sun Crusher, the Maw in the Maw installation by Kessel. That whole stuff, things that would later on in the Solo series we'd come back and you'd see some of that. But also one of my early favorite Siths when I was a young lad of Exar Kun.
Yes.
Always loved Exar. That's the one. I mentioned him in passing, I guess, in canon. So he's officially in canon, but he just hasn't made it's been mentioned. He's been mentioned in passing of oh yes, he was a Sith Lord or something like that. But I loved Exar Kun. Read his comic.
He's the first mention of a dual-bladed lightsaber that we see in canon, isn't it?
Yes, it is. In
I
fact,
think so.
I have in my Star Wars weapons and technology book for the RPG. They actually, when they're talking about melee weapons, they actually list his lightsaber. And for a double-ended lightsaber, it's actually relatively short. It's only about that long, but it has the dual-ended capability. And so when they first started releasing the teaser for episode 1, and I saw it, I was watching it in theater, and I shout out, "That's Exar Kun's lightsaber!" Because I thought that's who it was, and it turns out it's Darth Maul, which is And someone in the front of the theater thought I was making some kind of weird statement. I'm like, no, it's a Star Wars thing. Don't worry.
Garrett, my heart goes out to you. I was the only one in the theater who recognized Ambassador Palpatine in episode 1. Everyone's like, who's that guy? Read a book, you guys. He has the same last name. It's the same actor.
Yeah.
I recognized him.
But yeah, these
casuals, man.
I almost put in, when we were talking about this, I almost mentioned Heir to the Empire, but I decided not to talk to because we really talked about that last week. But that was the book that made me the fan I am today, was Heir to the Empire.
Yeah,
that really got me into being oh yeah, I like Star Wars too.
I
want to know everything about this. I want to know, and it set up so many of, especially with Legends. I mean, even Timothy's he invented Coruscant.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that's become canon. I mean, not just the character, but concepts of the New Republic. He coined that phrase. He coined that. He coined Coruscant. He did all of these things that became staples throughout for years and really set up this whole new world of what would become Legends, and in many ways even the new canon. I mean, as far as concept and ideas that were brought over, but now the new Jedi. I mean, not the new Jedi Order. The Academy trilogy is they're young adult books, but they're really fun. They really tell fun stories, and you get to see it from a kind of a different point of view of Luke and Leia's nephew. Luke's nephew, Leia's two kids are the twins are a major part of it.
Jason and Jaina.
I think Anakin was still an infant when the books were out. He was an infant
when we first saw the casting of Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver. A lot of people assumed that they were being cast as Jason and Jaina.
Yes, yeah, and I know a lot of people were upset that we didn't get that. A lot of people were hoping that they would get we're gonna get.
Disney's not gonna make a new series of movies that you could spoil for $3 at a used bookstore. It's just not good. Not good.
Yeah.
I mean, if they had gone with a completely different story arc and reworked it, I think it would have worked. But yeah,
I gotta say, I know it's silly and it's a pipe dream, but I really think that Disney has the capacity to make all of those Legends books into movies under the imprimatur of Disney Toy Story, Disney Star Wars Toy Story, and have action figures act out all this. Just play it straight. They don't know their toys. They're just living their lives.
That would be fun.
Once they built that up, do a trilogy, maybe 2 like that, and then you can bring in the new canon where Kylo Ren toys are trying to destroy the old toys because Kylo Ren wants to be the only canonical villain.
Yeah.
I think I do have really one far with that. Hire me, Disney.
I do have one question though with these books is, do you think that they fell into the trap of let's bring up the super weapon? Because that was one of the whole things with this is they had the Sun Crusher, which is like the Death Star on steroids. Like the Death Star can destroy a planet, the Sun Crusher can destroy a solar system. Because it causes and the fact that the ship itself was indestructible. Like you get this tiny little ship that's indestructible that can destroy a solar system, and it's like, okay, we have to figure out how do we destroy it. And in the end, spoilers for a book that was written in 1994. They're finally able to get Kip back on the light side, and Luke, I think the twins use the Force to throw it into the center of a gas giant in the center of Bespin.
Crazy.
And then Kip uses the Force to pull it out, and then I think they throw it into a star or something. I don't remember what they do with it, but
I remember that indestructible ship, and it reminds me when people say, why don't they just make the whole plane out of the black box?
That's pretty much what they did with the Sun Crusher. It was the entire ship was the black box.
Right. Another trap I think they fell into, I think the Jedi Academy was the first of this, but it really set the tone for a lot of subsequent books where a young Jedi in training comes across an ancient Sith burial site and is thereby corrupted.
Yes.
I mean, but towards the end of the tenure of the Legend, the EU, the old Legends books, you kind of saw how broadly spread the Sith Empire was, because every freaking planet, no matter where you are, you're no more.
Yeah. You almost want to say, is there some place where there's not a Sith temple? I mean, Luke, come on, you see the giant, pyramids there. That should be a sign that there's something going on here. Maybe
I wish I was a cartoonist. There's a comic strip out there where some young Sith trainee is like, I want to see the ancient Sith secrets. Take me to an ancient place. And the Sith master's like, it was one over there, one that way. We could get a speeder, get a 20-minute drive that way. They're just everywhere. It's like a Starbucks.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I loved those books, but if you read them as a cynical observer, you start to see patterns. I love Jack Reacher books, but every Jack Reacher book follows the same exact plot.
He wants to be left alone. He gets wrangled into something.
Right.
It makes it personal for him, and he has to right the wrong, and he's the last one standing.
there is a
Yeah.
brave and beautiful and conveniently unattached woman involved. Either she's a victim or a fellow law enforcement officer. They have a consensual relationship, which is just as consensually ended. Everybody's happy. It's pretty, but they're great books. I'll read them all day long, and I'll watch every episode of the show.
Dude,
But-
the third season, that Dutch guy, man, that guy, he was
Yeah. That was a great book too. Any rate, that's a good pick, Mark. Did you have any secondaries? I liked how Garrett gave us a few options.
I mean, yeah, I read. It's been so long since I've read any Star Wars books. I'll be honest. I need to get back into it. But there was a time where I was reading I read every book up into, I think I ended reading consistently after the New Jedi Order, after the Yuzheng Vong. That kind of burnt me out. But
Yeah,
I love the X-Wing stories; those were fun. I really enjoyed the True Sepikora. I love the idea of this Saruki, which that's one alien race I wish they had brought back.
That would have been cool.
How are we spelling that?
SSI Saru. I could never remember how it's
Shriruki.
spelled. Shriruki, yeah.
It's kind of like with Sri Lanka, but Ruki. Shriruki.
And it's got like an apostrophe. It's S''S. They were a reptilian race, and
yeah, they kind of look like velociraptors with guns.
yeah, they use like the life essence of humans to fuel their stuff. That part I never was able to understand how
I'm not spelling it correctly, obviously.
how they were able, what they did with the people, but they basically used their life essence to, almost like the Borg.
Oh, a follow-on, speaking of spelling things wrong, anybody at home who's interested in the human replacement droid Guri that Garrett was talking about earlier, if you Google Guri, it's Guri, but be sure to add Star Wars in there unless you're a fan of Punjabi pop music.
Oh, dear God.
There is a very successful and very popular Punjabi musician with a distinctive hairstyle who will pop up first before a Star Wars android will,
I don't even want to know.
as I have just learned. Catchy music.
There could have been a lot worse things that
Nice.
pop up. You never know what you're going to get when you Google something randomly.
I do. I have safe search on. I know.
Good man. Good man.
Some years ago, I convinced my wife to wear a costume to a movie opening, and I made the mistake of Googling adult Hermione costume, and now I'm in
Oh,
trouble.
no. I'm now having flashbacks of the SNL episode where
Yes,
where Lindsay Lohan is doing a Harry Potter sketch.
sure. Got it bookmarked.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go.
Okay.
So anybody who's listened to me talk about Star Wars for more than 7 minutes would be correct in guessing my favorite Star Wars novel is Darth Plagueis. But as I already did a book report on that one on this very show, I'm going to go with my second favorite, Dark Disciple. Dark Disciple is a novel based on unproduced episodes of the Clone Wars. It was written by Christy Golden and Kay Lucas. It comprises an 8-episode arc, and it stars Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Vos. And the premise is the Jedi Order has, after much deliberation, made the decision to send Quinlan Vos on an assassination mission to kill Count Dooku. There is a great deal of debate amongst the Jedi Council as to whether or not assassination is within the Jedi way. They come down on the side of it's for the greater good of the galaxy, and so we're going to hold our nose and pull the trigger here. Quinlan Vos is a very interesting character I had not really encountered. I think he's on screen in the background of 2 scenes in the original trilogy, but he is very talented Force adept, and he also has psychomancy, which is the ability to hold an item and witness its future through Force, or its past through Force visions. Deciding that Quinlan Vos is not going to be very good at this on his own, they decide to send him to seek out a known assassin who knows Count Dooku well and who is also a skilled bounty hunter, that being one Asajj Ventress. And we meet her with hair, which is an interesting take. She has traded in her red lightsabers for one yellow lightsaber, and she is a very skilled bounty hunter. The two of them train together after some sort of rom-com style, hate you too, oh wait, I think I love you kind of situation. It's great. They're the Ross and Rachel of the Force. I love it. It gets fairly dark in that Quinlan Vos is kidnapped, at one point, while they do fall in love, they begin a romantic relationship. Quinlan Vos is captured and turned by Count Dooku. While he is imprisoned, Asajj Ventress is also imprisoned alongside him, and Count Dooku presents her with Quinlan Vos's lightsaber. Sorry, Quinlan Vos is presented with Asajj Ventress's lightsaber. As soon as he touches it, his psychomancy shows him that Asajj Ventress is the one who killed his master. And so there's some drama there. It's a beautiful piece. I'm glad to see Asajj Ventress coming back into canon because she dies at the end of that film. I'm not sure how Underworld is going to incorporate that, if she's going to not have really died or if it takes place before
well,
that.
But Asajj Ventress technically takes place, it has a presence in the third season of Bad Batch. So, and they go quite some time with her being around. So
it's very close to the events of episode 3 that she dies in the novel.
Well, the Bad Batch takes place after the events of episode 3. So
I need to watch Bad Batch because I have not seen all of that show. Seriously.
Yeah, because Bad Batch actually picks up during the events of Order 66. They're introduced at the tail end of the Clone Wars, and it picks and like where they're introduced, Order 66 is taking place, and they refuse to kill their Jedi leader, but Crosshair is starting to freak out because the chip in his head is working.
Good soldiers follow orders.
Exactly.
I've seen the first season. Well, at the conclusion of Dark Disciple, Asajj Ventress is dead and buried, so I'll be interested to see how they undo that. But her body, in honor of the considerable effort that she put forth in the service of the Jedi, because you guys probably know this, but not everyone does, Asajj Ventress was once a Jedi Padawan.
Right.
And so she is instrumental in clearing the name of Ahsoka Tano. She's instrumental in the rescue of Quinlan Vos, if not the assassination of Count Dooku. And so it is Obi-Wan and Quinlan Vos who escort her body to Dathomir, where she is interred. And Obi-Wan, in a really interesting moment for me, Obi-Wan acknowledges that there is beauty in the dark side. And that book is great. It's a real deep dive into the traditions of the Dathomir Night Sisters. I think Asajj Ventress is such a fascinating character. She's the only canon character who's trained in 3 different traditions. She trained as a Jedi Padawan for years. Then she was trained as a Sith assassin for years, and then she ended up being trained as a Dathomir Night Sister. So no one in canon has a broader grasp of the Force and Force traditions, and I think that's an interesting aspect of her. Also, and this is somewhat metatextual, I think it could be argued that Asajj Ventress is one of the best duelists in the galaxy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she easily took on Anakin, and he's considered one of the best sword fighters.
She fights Anakin and Kenobi 2 against 1 dozens of times. She doesn't defeat them, but I would argue that getting away from both of them alive and unharmed is better than anybody else has ever done. So, and it's metatextual because the reason for that is, of course, she's a primary antagonist of the Clone Wars. They can't kill her immediately, so a little less fun there. But
yeah.
There is a nice Easter egg in that book in that I think that Christy Golden or Katie Lucas had been reading about the mantis shrimp when they wrote that book, because that part of the Dathomir Night Sister initiation rite is to dive into this water and face this sort of unknown sea creature beast, which is quite clearly a mantis shrimp, described like all of the same aspects of a mantis shrimp down to the coloration, and it's pretty interesting, although of course much larger. So yeah, Dark Disciple. The first time I read it, I cried twice. Shut up! I'm not crying. You're crying twice. really emotional, and to feel. I like the sense of what could have been, because Asajj Ventress was so close to a happy life with Quinlan Vos, and it's destroyed by the dark side. Yeah. And as a dark side enthusiast, I'm supposed to be saying yes, but it's sad. Like as a human being on Earth, that's a tragic moment. There are similar moments in Inquisitor: Rise of the Dark Blade, which was a close second. But other favorite books of mine, though, I'm gonna, in honor, I should say, of Garrett's making of Empire Strikes Back, the D20 Dark Side source book for the D20 series system of tabletop role-playing games.
Yeah,
is where I learned the mechanics of a lot of the dark side. I mean, I had read all the books, all the comics, but at the time that book came out, I hadn't really played anything other than West End Games Star Wars, and that was a decade or 2 prior. So it's a great book. I really like the D20 tabletop RPG system, so it was really cool to see those powers put in that context. Also, in honor of Garrett's Jedi Path, I'm going to go Book of the Sith. It's the same exact concept. It is portrayed as a collection of a collection of excerpts from various texts. And I don't know if the Jedi Path does this, but the Book of Sith, each section has different edging on the pages. So like it really feels like parts of different books bound together. And it's Palpatine Diaries. We learn about Palpatine's idea of concept of the rule of one. There's notes from Yoda and Mace Windu. There's all kinds of things like that. So it's a great piece of work. The two pictures that I posted up earlier, I have versions of that inserted into my Sith Book of Sith. Of course, I have my own custom Book of Sith with my own writings in it as well, because that's the kind of lastly, I'm going to say the Darth Vader comic book series. They're from start to finish, they began filling in the spaces between the original trilogy movies. There's just too much good to say. I mean, go buy, if you've got Marvel Plus or whatever it is that you can read Marvel Comics online, read the Darth Vader comic books. They introduce Dr. Aphra, an amazing bounty hunter, weapons dealer. They introduce 000, a torture droid in a C-3PO chassis. BT-1, who is an astromech, except he's an assassin droid. Black Kirsten-Tan, the Wookiee bounty hunter that we meet in Book of Boba Fett. It's endless. The great stories. You've seen the meme where Darth Vader stands up and says, "All I'm surrounded by is fear and dead men."
Fear and
that's from Darth Vader, the comic book.
I want to give a quick little shout out to a short novella that was written it was written in concert with the old TIE Fighter game. They had which was part of the X-Wing game series. And if you bought a certain one of the TIE Fighter game, it was a little about like this thick little short novella, and it was the point of view of a TIE Fighter pilot. And it had a backstory of he was from this planet that had been racked with civil war for decades. He was born into civil war. He was a swoop biker, and the Empire came in and basically said, "You two are going to get together, or we're going to make you get along together," and took over their planet. So from his point of view, like he's a TIE fighter pilot, him and his friends are recruited. They volunteer to join the Empire, and from his point of view, the Empire saved his life, because he was going to be just living in squalor on the streets, and now he has a purpose, and he trains to be. And they talk about how like both of them are looking at each other like, "You're crazy to be able." The one becomes a stormtrooper. He's like, "Oh, you're just going to be cannon fodder. You're crazy." And the other one's like, "No, you're crazy. You're getting into a death trap with no shields and no."
Yeah. There's a couple of books that I've encountered in the last couple of months. They're audiobooks that I found as part of my subscription with Audible. And
not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor, unfortunately.
Could be.
But
keep
they're
saying Audible, they'll hear you.
Audible. No, they're two books that go back to back. I actually read them in reverse order. But it takes place during the period of the High Republic. And the first one is called Seeds of Starlight, and the second one is called Haunted Starlight. And it deals with some Jedi on a planet that has dealt with some criminal terrorism going on, and this organization was fighting against the Republic and especially the Jedi. But that organization kind of left some of their truest believers behind on the planet because they were just cannon fodder. And a lot of them were young kids and young adults that were just trying to find a place where they belonged. And but what's ending up happening is there's also a blight going out throughout the galaxy, killing off all sorts of plant life, and whole planets are losing their vegetation. And there is a kind of a plant-like species. They kind of remind me of equal parts Flood from Halo and meets like some kind of like eldritch entity, but they're called the Drengir, and they have a hive mind with a Drengir queen or mother, and they're very hard to kill. And they start taking people hostage, and warping their brains to help build a ship. And it's a very interesting 2-part story. And you do have some Jedi Padawan and younglings who are kind of at the center of it. And what's interesting is, like, they do have help, they do have guidance and teaching from their adult masters, but at the same time, you get to see what these kids are capable of doing when they're left to their own devices because of the training that they have been given. In fact, the main Padawan who's in it, like, his connection with his master is that his master had didn't have a master. He had been orphaned before being brought into the order, and his master, who's in her, I would say, 30s, had a Padawan that was killed in front of her. And so they're both kind of getting a second chance, and they've had a very fast bond as teacher and student. And the master actually is kidnapped by the Drengir, and it is their bond that actually saves her and brings her back from being an automaton.
You mentioned the Drengir are a plant-based species. I really like that. I was just reading up on them because I have not read those books.
Yeah.
Are you guys familiar with the Neti species, NETI? They are a plant-based species that we really see very little of, but they're primarily, I don't think they're in Disney canon, but in the book Red Harvest, have you guys read that? That's the zombie.
Yeah, I haven't read it, but I've heard of it.
Familiar with it? There's 2 zombie books in Star Wars, and one of them is Red Harvest. The other one is it's a war movie. I'm not a big fan of it, but it's fine. But Red Harvest takes place at a Sith academy that becomes infected with a zombie plague. And I like it first and foremost because the headmaster of the Sith Academy is named Darth Scabrous, and that name just sends me. Like, was Darth Furunculus taken? Like, why do they? Anyway, so I think sometimes they go a little bit much. But the librarian, and this is something I want to talk about on our book episode, the librarian is a Neti, and when it becomes infested with a plague, the zombie plague not only makes you like into a rabid killer, it twists your values. And so this librarian of all this collected Sith knowledge sets it all on fire. And the chapter where it sets it on fire begins with the line, "It was a pleasure to burn."
That feels very...
That is the first sentence from Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's very, very Fahrenheit 451 right there.
I like reference, and that's not an accident. Of course, that was on purpose. Another one I like that is in Matt Stover's novelization of Episode 3. When Palpatine sees himself reflected in the glass, he sees what his face is after the attack by the Jedi. He says, "Now the mask becomes the man," which is a word-for-word quote from Phantom of the Opera. And again, that cannot be an accident. That's clearly on purpose. I like little in-text references like that.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah. I actually worked on a story years ago when I was in college, and I developed it, and I eventually wrote it out, called Trials of the New Breed. It takes place about 200 years after the events of Yavin. And so it's a little bit of a different take and kind of like a resurgence of High Republic values. Jedi are still there, but they're a little bit more spread out. They're not just isolated to one temple. And one of the characters that's in there, he is I think you'll appreciate this, Brian. He's a Jedi Knight, and his name is Talos Marin, but he has no connection to the Night Sister from the Jedi Fallen Order games. It was just a name I went with before that game was ever published. And he is he has a Padawan. He's teaching her, and come to find out, though, there is a Sith Lord in the background of all this whole thing. It goes by the name of Darth Magus, and come to find out, he was Talos's master who faked his death so he could fully embrace the dark side. And ironically enough, he was a Thaleen. So he very manipulative on both a spiritual and on a biochemical level. And so he uses the events of the story to manipulate Talos into turning to the dark side the way he had always tried to do before he had to fake his death. And at the end, what it takes is a bomb going off during this final confrontation and killing Talos's Padawan in front of him. And he just flips and just goes berserk. And at the end of it, he's getting an replacement arm attached to his body, and he starts asking the medical droids if they can, if they're capable of doing tattoos. He ends up becoming Darth Thrall.
Boo! Not a fan of that name.
Well, you know what a thrall is, right?
I do. It's not something a Sith Lord would identify as.
It would make sense because he was a slave. He was enslaved by a magus.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's some poetry there. It rhymes, okay, Brian?
I'll take it. I'll take it.
He's
paying me to write books. I'll give it to him.
There was a comic, Star Wars comic, and I don't remember which comic it was, but the scene was a Sith Lord and his apprentice land in this town. It looks like your typical Star Wars, small city like Mos Eisley or something like that. Mm-hmm. And they need to get some sort of equipment. So they're going through the town, and as they're going, they're being followed by this girl who's following them around. And at one point, like the guy, the boy, the apprentice tries to help the girl, and the boy, and something happens, and the girl basically just kills the boy, like realizes what's going on, and just shoves the boy off of a ledge, and the master just looks there and says, "Well, are you coming or not?"
That is Darth Bane and Darth Zana.
Yeah. I was gonna say I wrote in high school.
Oh no, it's not Darth Zana. Yes, I've read that comic as well. The girl looks kind of like cutie pie elfin features.
Yeah, and it seems like she's gonna be, and then the master basically sets up for his apprentice to kill her, and then she turns around and kills him. But I had to write for English class, write like a short story, and I wrote a Star Wars story for mine, and it was set immediately after Return of the Jedi, and it was this world at the very edge of the Imperial space, which is an Imperial world, and they've just gotten the news that Palpatine has been killed, and that a rebel fleet was coming in to basically occupy they don't have any they have like a small garrison there, and they're trying to figure out what do we do with this rebel fleet coming in. Do we fight back? And it revolved around two brothers. One, of course, was very strongly Imperial. The other one was more leaning towards the rebels, and it had suicide in it. It had all kinds of different things, because they find the body of the governor dead when he finds out that the emperor had died, and so everything was in
crazy order.
Yeah.
It's killing me now. I gotta figure out who where that comic was. I've seen that exact one. The kids had like a force pet or something. It was like a sort of floating orb ball thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And I don't think there's very little talking in the comic. There's like at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just that like the girl following them around.
Mm-hmm. I like scenes like that. There's an interesting scene in Darth Plagueis. I had to bring it up when Sidious goes to Dathomir and is approached by a Night Sister who offers him Darth Maul as an infant, and like he's just sort of shopping in a town square type thing, and she's sort of following him around, and there's some banter or whatever, and she offers it. The story is this is her child, and she has given birth to Maul and Oppress, and she wants one of them to live free from Mother Talzin's influence, And so she gives Maul to Sidious. Maul's already been tattooed and everything, and that's where Maul comes from. That is the only that I know. That's the only point where new canon or Disney canon overlaps and contradicts that where that book doesn't fit in the new canon. Speaking of little trivia things, Darth Plagueis was written. It came out, I think, 6 months before the Disney canon cut off, or after rather. And so it is not a canon novel, but many of the events that take place in the Tarkin novel, also written by James Luceno, they refer to events in Plagueis and introduce characters that were first introduced in Plagueis. So Luceno is on record as saying it's sort of canon. It's canon as far as he's concerned.
Yeah.
It's the best story we have of Palpatine's upbringing yet, compared to there was, I don't know if it was ever legit, but there was talk of a TV series they were going to make of Palpatine coming to the dark side. It was going to be played by Tom Hiddleston.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's Loki, right? Tom Hiddleston?
Yeah.
Played by Tom Hiddleston with red hair. And he was going to turn to the dark side because he got his heart broken. Guys, I will go back to Stargate. I swear to God, I swear to Set, I will go back to Stargate. You will see me wearing an Anubis headdress, and I will sell my cloaks.
So now we know if you show up and you're wearing a headdress, we know what happened.
Yep. I always love, just a bit off topic, but that's who I am as a person. I always love off-kilter cosplays. Like I've got my Gentleman Vader. I saw a Darth Vader at Celebration Chicago where he's like Darth Vader. But he's in a tuxedo. He's got a tray. But some of my favorites are folks who dress up from other.
Did Darth Vader
fandoms.
ever come up and be like, "How may I serve you, my master"?
Yes, he did. Good call, Garrett.
Nice.
Yes.
Because I met him as Palpatine, and he came up and said, "May I take your order, my master?" Yes. But my favorite, I love the people who come in other fandom cosplays. Like you'll see periodically Star Trek people holding signs like "Star Trek is better." And I saw some of those guys who were at Japan this year, and so people are like, "Oh, they suck," and they're hating on them. Like, guys, these people didn't go to Japan and go to this con because they hate Star Wars. They did this, like, I'm sure they wore that Star Trek outfit for fun. Like, it is not a cheap investment to just pop over to Japan for a week. So I like that. That reminds me, I maybe even mentioned I was at I've seen the occasional Star Trek cosplayer at Renaissance fairs. Have you guys ever seen that?
You've talked about. Yeah, you have talked. About that.
So, anyway, well, good books.
It's a good story.
I need to pick up some other ones that I'm going to find out what that comic is, Mark, because I'm sure I've got it in my long box.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian, if you ever want to read that Trials of the New Breed, I've got the story finished.
Okay, yeah.
And I can send you a PDF of it.
That would be great.
Now, let me see what I can do about that. Give me a second. So, cool. So, what do we have on the docket for next week?
Next week, that would be our. Oh, that's
Memorial
right.
Day.
There is nothing next week. It is Memorial Day here in the States. So we'll be spending time with our friends and family and celebrating in the most American way that we know possible by getting new mattresses.
Oh, that's what you guys do? I just, go swimming and have a barbecue.
Probably that too. We can't afford we do need new mattresses, but we can't afford new mattresses. But
dude, nobody can afford new mattresses. Why are they so expensive? I don't get it.
I don't know.
That's weird. Around here, I always see them for sale on handwritten signs by the side of the road.
I wouldn't trust those.
No. Don't buy a used mattress. That's the weird thing about hotels, by the way. You couldn't sell a used mattress, but they'll charge you $250 a night to sleep on one.
Right? That's weird.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, we will be taking a week off spending time with friends and family, as I said, and then we will be back the week after that. And what will we? Do you have any idea what we'll be talking about that week?
Actually, yes. We will be. Let me pull up the schedule. Next week. We're going to be. Well, the week after that, we're going to be talking about lore. We haven't decided on a topic yet, but we will have more information on that soon.
Soon. And when will then be now?
We will be pushing back because normally we do our reviews at the end of the month. So our review of Rise of the Skywalker will actually be coming at the end of June rather than the end of May. So
yes,
but we will be doing an Andor review in the middle of June. That will be coming. So if Brian is needing access, we can make sure that happens. That way he doesn't have to pay an arm and a leg for 2 weeks of Disney Plus if necessary. So yeah. Any other thoughts, concerns, questions?
I can't think of any.
All right. Well, Brian, why don't you tell all the folks where they can find you?
All the folks can come see me and my esteemed colleagues at the Sith Library and Archives on Facebook. We are a lovingly curated collection of Sith, Empire, and First Order related dark side stuff. If it's bad, we've got it and it's good. My personal claim to fame there is every Easter I post a picture of Darth Maul, and I caption it. Died for his beliefs, returned from the dead, but 90% will not share Darth Maul for Easter. I've been reported for that. Most years I do that. So, anyway, come see us. It's not all jokes. We do take it fairly seriously, and we would love to have you over there. Sith Library and Archives on Facebook.
Nice.
All right,
well, Brian, Garrett,
as
whoever
for
you
me,
are.
I'm whoever I am. I don't know who I am. You can ask me if you forget, though. I'm the dude playing the dude disguised as another dude.
Yeah, and you didn't get my joke earlier. You said soon. I said when will then be now?
Oh, I got it. Spaceballs.
Soon.
Yes. So you guys can connect with me on Instagram and X at GKJ_publishing, where I talk about my books, The Archives of Async Ran, as well as my newest book, Midnight Playground, a collected anthology of original short stories. You can also connect with me on YouTube. Just search for GKJ Publishing. I do a show called The Right Way, where we talk book recommendations, author interviews, and creative writing tips. I'm off on that for the next 2 weeks because I'm in the process of filming my episode for June. But you can also connect with me on a brand new episode of the Snackame podcast on Feast of Fandoms. We have a new episode coming out this Friday. We are talking about Netflix's own Delicious in Dungeon, and we're eating some monstrous snacks. So, yeah. Peace.
Sounds good. All right. As for us right here, if you want to get a hold of us, you can do so through our email. That is warofthestars1@gmail.com. All other social media, you can catch us at War of the Stars 77. If you care to listen to us in audio form, we are once again uploading our backlog of newer episodes on Spotify. Just search War of the Stars, the Star Wars podcast. On Spotify, you can check out the episodes there if you so wish. I mean, I don't know why you want to see our beautiful faces, but maybe you're on the road driving and you want to check us out that way. You can do so there. Otherwise, we are a part of Feast of Fandom. That is our official YouTube page where you can check us out. And all our wonderful glory is on Feast of Fandoms. And check out all the other shows on Feast of Fandoms, like Garrett mentioned Snackame. But yeah. If you want to support the show, Ko-fi.com/War of the Stars. And of course, our Spreadshirt shop, once again, it is spreadshirt.com/shop/war-of-the-stars. We are working. I have a cup design on Teespring. I'm working on getting that set up. So it'll be a lot easier, maybe a little bit easier to get merch, but I have a couple of things designs already set up. I just got to finish that up. So we'll be looking at the future for more designs and different things for merchandise. With that being said, once again, thank you all for joining us this week. And remember, this is not just my Star Wars. It's not just your Star Wars. This is our Star Wars. May the force be with you.